Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Ladies and gentlemen, with so many stories going on, you've got arrests, you've got knuckleheads, you've got Mueller's testimony, you got Q posts, shills popping out everywhere. They're popping out everywhere, I tell you. Well, we've got some Q posts popping out, lots of news popping out. But first, I want to cover a Q post that I failed to enter in yesterday's video. So maybe we should go back. John.
What?
You want to flashback?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Got a flashback aside. Yeah, take you back. Yeah. Taking you back, but not way back. Just yesterday, I forgot to put in 3419. I actually recorded this, and then my software shut down again. As you guys know, I'm having some tech issues. And when I rebooted it and redid everything, I forgot to put this entry back in. So I'm going to just kind of cruise through this quick. This was dealing with singer R. Kelly. Here's the article. R. Kelly arrested in Chicago on federal child pornography charges, faces NYC indictment. Also, this is 13 new indictments. Now, we knew these were kind of coming, but there's a real oddity here with this whole story. And I want to save some of this because it's actually in part of my Weatherman video. But I want to turn you on to a couple connections just on a general level. First of all, R. Kelly's already had been charged, and a lot of those charges were dropped. 14 charges were dropped against R. Kelly, and that was really, really suspect. A lot of celebrities came out against R. Kelly, and that's a real important thing. Remember, this had to do with Me Too and da-da-da-da-da. So now we've got these new charges. But somewhere in the meantime is really the sketchy part. And this is where we had the story of creepy porn lawyer Michael Avenatti, who had come out saying that he had had some videos of R. Kelly. Well, fair enough, but how did you get them? And Avenatti hasn't been real forthright about that. Now, since then, we know that Avenatti himself has had some trouble with the law in regards to how he handled Nike. The other guy that was popped along with Avenatti was one Mark Garagos. Now, Garagos happens to also be representing Jussie Smollett, and that's another Cook County case in which Kim Foxx was involved. So Kim Foxx seems to have a bias towards Kelly and not so much Jussie Smollett, but it's all Cook County, and I want to point that out. Another key client of Garagos is, of course, Claire Bronfman, who's been arrested on the whole Nexium issue. So this R. Kelly story, to me, sounds like to me like somebody got upset with R. Kelly and decided to go ahead and cash his little insurance policy in, if you know what I mean. Many of these stars probably have these kinds of videos, and it looks like somebody just, maybe R. Kelly crossed the line or whatever, and somebody decided to cash in. But that's what I'm getting out of this. Now, keep in mind, too, that Avenatti also represented Stormy Daniels. And we don't know for a fact, but we have that picture of Stormy Daniels' tattoo, which looks oddly like the Nexium brand. And don't forget, if you remember, she got popped on this little charge, motorboating a cop in a strip club. And it wasn't a big deal, at least with the mainstream media. They let her go right away and no one ever talked about it again. But I do want to point out that arrest, a little known fact that people talked about, or didn't talk about, was that arrest came as part of a human trafficking ongoing investigation. That was one little detail they swept under the rug. So it's all connected. I'm going to add a little bit more into the Weatherman, but that is that for now, and that's probably how this is all related, why we saw this post regarding R. Kelly in the middle of all these Epstein drops. So there you go. Back to present day, post 3421, where we get this screenshot here of post 2874 from February 22nd, 2019. And it was a Twitter link to an AP article. This right here, White House looking into Labor Secretary Acosta's role in secret plea deal for sex abuse. Yeah, it looked like they were doing some funky stuff to make sure that Epstein didn't go away for too long, and probably likely to protect other co-conspirators. And it seemed like Labor Secretary Acosta was very, very engaged in this whole thing. All right. Well, Q had said, how do you fill your admin if majority of those in politics are corrupt? Draining the swamp. All right, well, Q has said about 70%, and who knows how many it really is. But look, there's a lot of people who are probably even playing white hat roles that probably got a little bit of gray on those hats, right? It's not that simple. But there are a lot of people that are playing along, and who knows what kind of deals everyone's made. We may never really truly know. But we do know that the swamp is deep, and I sure hope that eventually we get John Bolton out of there too. Just saying. That's just me personally. All right. Well, this link right here is to Fox News, and this is an update. Labor Secretary Acosta announces he will step down amid criticism over Epstein plea deal. Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta said Friday he will be stepping down over his past involvement in a highly controversial plea deal for financier Jeffrey Epstein, who is now facing sex trafficking charges. Acosta and President Trump revealed the secretary's decision Friday morning during remarks to reporters outside the White House. Acosta said he submitted his resignation to the president that morning and would resign from his post next week. Over the last week, I've seen a lot of coverage about the Department of Labor, Acosta said, noting the reports have been related to the Epstein controversy and not success at the agency. Yeah, well, that Epstein controversy isn't a success. I do not think it is right and fair for this administration's Labor Department to have Epstein as the focus rather than the incredible economy we have today. Oh, so I suppose you understand now how President Trump has felt for the last 2 freaking years. I called the president today. I submitted my resignation, Acosta said. It would be selfish for me to stay in this position and continue talking about a case that is 12 years old rather than the incredible economy we have today. Okay, so this is essentially some projecting by Mr. Acosta. It says down here, the deal was criticized as lenient. Yeah, you don't say. He's already out of jail because Epstein could have faced a life sentence. Acosta negotiated a deal that resulted in 2 state solicitation charges, but no federal charges. And I want to add that the whole reason that Epstein is even back in the spotlight with all of this is that all the new indictments were allowed in. They weren't really all that new. They just weren't being admitted. And so all this time, Epstein wasn't really being properly charged. And that's essentially what I get out of this whole thing. And of course, Acosta was a big part of this negotiation. So back to the Q post, you can see what Q is pointing out here is that Acosta is one of those guys that obviously was filling a position for a certain amount of time. But he was most certainly not the perfect man for the job, and very much I'm personally referencing John Bolton. You may like him, you may not, but I feel very much the same way. This guy doesn't really seem to have our interests a lot, seems to want to go make war all over the world, and yet at the same time, he might be the very best guy right now, considering all the people that are so dead set against POTUS even being in the presidency. So just a point that I want to make, and I think that's the point Q is trying to make, that sometimes you got to work with your enemies, keep them close, because that's about the only way we can get anything done. And not to mention, we may still be finding out who some of these swamp creatures are by their actions. But this is big news. The Epstein thing is definitely blowing up. Acosta's projection seems to suggest that he does have a big role, which we already kind of suspected. Let's move on to 3422, 26 minutes after the hour 9. We get this simply in brackets: New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, Q. And here's their website right here, the NYSPCC, New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Now, we don't know for certain about this group, but we're imagining that since Q is lumping this in with all these other posts, we can probably assume that Q is implying to look deeper into the origins of this group. And this is an old group. As a matter of fact, it is the first child protection agency in the world, founded in 1875. Now, if you're rather new to this, I want to let you know that often what we found in looking at these foundations is that they turn out to be glorified slush funds and oftentimes are guilty of the very things that they claim to be preventing. Now, we don't know that for sure. I'm just letting you know that that's kind of what we've found over the past. And there's a few red flags here, but I just want to really point a couple of the obvious things out here. This first one are the couple of events that we see down on the very front page. This is for an event on November 20th, 2019, a food and wine gallery. Save the date. I don't know why I said gallery. Gala. With celebrity chef Elizabeth Faulkner. Elizabeth Faulkner is she owns a pizza place out there in Brooklyn. And she does a little TV. She has a little show and whatnot. She's very wrapped up in the Me Too movement. This is her Twitter right here. And I don't want to go way into her, although I thought the Me Too connection was really, really interesting. But I want to point one thing out right here. Let me see if I can blow it up for you. Drama at the James Beard Awards, accused of collusion. Okay, no big deal, but I just want you to note here that we have this Fun with Kate. And looks like she was there with Fun with Kate, and they've got a little pizza in the logo right there. Co-host of Taste Made Presents Table Setting Podcast. And I just thought that was interesting that they included a piece of pizza there. Nothing damning, just letting you know. Anyway, let's go back to this right here. And this is there's an award being presented to Vicky Cornell. Now, Vicky Cornell was the wife of famous rock singer Chris Cornell from Soundgarden and Audio Slave. Soundgarden, by the way, was probably the best band of the 90s. Fight me. Just saying. But Chris Cornell had himself a very, very interesting death. And this is a very sad thing for me to talk about because I have some similar circles in some of these groups. So I was a big fan of Chris, and he was found hung with a red exercise band, which kind of correlates to a lot of these other really, really strange hangings and mysterious quote-unquote suicides. Now, Vicky Cornell has really lashed out at a lot of mediaites that have been questioning the story of Chris Cornell. Now, to be fair, if you lost your husband, you wouldn't want anybody talking a bunch of smack that they didn't know. But she's had a really, really interesting role, and shortly after the death, she ended up becoming a director of this New York society. So she's wrapped up, and that's why they're giving the award there. So that's very, very suspect. And of course, you may know that one of a person who kind of considered Chris a mentor was Chester Bennington, a singer of Linkin Park, who had a very similar exit from this world too, which is also really, really sad. And maybe we'll go more into that particular story at some other time. But let's move on over here. Here's another event. This is also very creepy with the stars and everything like that, and the crescent moon right over the whatever. I don't want to get too much into symbolism, but you guys who know that this is some weird stuff. This is called Under the Stars, and this is going to be in September at the Standard Hotel. Now, this is the one in New York, the East Village, and you can see there's their logo right there, which is upside down, which is always very up and up, right? Yeah, I don't know. The Satanists love to do that stuff upside down. And the other thing that was creepy about this too, open bar and small bites. I'm just saying. And if you notice, these spires here in this little skyline here are under the words Purchase and Junior. I'm just saying. I don't know. But this is really, really weird. So lots of interesting connections here with this group. Also, Kimberly Guilfoyle was, I think that's how you say her name. She used to date Gavin Newsom. And she used to be in this group too. I don't know if she is any longer, but there's a lot of really, really interesting ties to this group, and it just seems rather suspect. But like I said, I don't like to damn any groups, but Q's the one who's calling them out. This is all, again, Bronx. We're back in the New York area again. And the fact that this is such an old institution is what kind of makes me raise an eyebrow. But you guys can let me know what else you think there. There's lots of pictures online with various, celebrities and things like that, celebrating groups like this. So it just seems rather suspect to me. And I also want to point out just one more thing, and it's down here. I don't know if you can see that. This is one of these groups that is highly recommended by GuideStar and Charity Navigator. Now, I'm not casting any aspersions on them either, but I've always found these groups to be a little bit interesting. I'm not really sure what makes them the quote-unquote authority. And, given a lot of Q's references about following the stars, it made me wonder if there might be something worth looking at with this Charity Navigator also. But that's pretty, like I said, that's just supposition, and I want you to just kind of accept that as such. But there is your organization. Post 3423, 27 minutes after the hour of 9. Q says, wheels up, once again in brackets. Flight logs, classified 1 through 99, under investigation by FBI DOJ. Okay, well, we know a lot about these Epstein flight logs. We know that they have tons and tons of celebrity names, as well as a little bit of royalty, politicians and whatnot, right? We've known this for a while now. As far as classified 1 through 99, these could be charges, investigations, indictments. Not really sure, but they're classified, and it's probably ongoing. So Q is probably encouraging us to find things that aren't classified that may lead us to some answers. But we do know that flight logs have been pretty damning for Jeffrey Epstein. And although Jeffrey Epstein sold that Lolita Express, who's to say he didn't own other flights? Now other planes. Now I do want to rememberize you of yesterday. I showed you this from the company Wheels Up, which is sort of an elite Uber for private planes right there. And look at that. Yeah, that's Bill Clinton getting off of that plane right there. So I think we might know where this might be leading, but I want to show you some other interesting stuff too from off of their Twitter. This is it right here. Now, let me just point out that it seems pretty normal until you get right about here. 101 best things to do in New York City. That's funny because everything's going down in New York City. What's your favorite thing to do in New York City? Once again, here's another tweet. This week's most popular destination is New York. How about that? And then I want to show you one from right down here. And it wasn't too long ago, I guess. July 10th. This seat has your name on it. Looks like a pretty sweet plane right there. Yeah, you can get yourself a nice, cushy little seat in the private plane. And oh, look at that right there. That's a bottle of Fiji water. Yeah, who else is related to Fiji water? Would that be one of the Bronfmans? I don't know. I'm just saying. Anyway, so that is Wheels Up. But let me take you to my Twitter. And this is from their Instagram. And they did this just the other day, a few days ago, about a week ago. And there's another dog post. Although this is Instagram, not Twitter. And it just is from Wheels Up 8760. Wheels Up 8760. Fly the whole family. Oh, so they're getting in on the dog post too. Interessante. Now, in regards to Wheels Up being under investigation by the FBI, DOJ, very well could be. And if it's classified information, we may not know. Now, I haven't found too much by way of investigations, but there was one very curious story that I want to turn you on to. This involved Wheels Up. And it was from back in October of 2015 where a door came off of this craft. And I'm going to leave this. This is from Business Insider. I'll leave this for you down below because there's some audio to this that I thought was a little interesting. But anyway, so they were flying from, it was another one of their private charters. And this one was going from Michigan to San Francisco to Michigan when the door opened shortly after takeoff. And, I suppose that could happen. It's not like that's a completely ridiculous premise. Fair enough. But the weird part about this story was despite this really stellar record that they were touting, and it says right here, in its September $115 million funding round. Sounds like they were getting quite a bit of coin. Well, this door flew off and they didn't bother reporting it. Now, if a door blows open, it could be just a poor latch. I mean, it's pretty poor form for a pilot, I suppose. I'm not a pilot. I suppose accidents could happen, right? Fair enough. But if you are this Uber of flying, and you're touting this amazing safety record, then I imagine you probably wouldn't have a big deal just reporting, hey man, we made it, it's a bit of an embarrassment. We're going to have to suck it up. We're going to have to deal with it, and then we'll move on, right? But instead, they just didn't report it. So I will leave you this here. It did say it was under investigation, but they didn't really say by who. It just says here, but couldn't comment further because of the investigation. So, and this involved, it went all the way to the top, Executive Vice President of Safety, Dave Hewitt. So here is the audio right here, and it's about 6 or 7 minutes long, so I'm not going to play it for you, but I will leave it for you. Oddly enough, they were talking about a similar flight in Malaysia where that sort of thing had happened also. So there you go. That's the only investigation that I've seen. I don't know if it's necessarily related or not, and I'm not so sure if anything's classified, if we'll be able to find out until it is declassified. For now, we'll move on. One more quick note before we move on to 3424. I also want to point out that in 2015, the same year as that investigation, Wheels Up had a gig running all those knuckleheads from Dancing with the Stars around, and I believe there would be some connections there too, but I will probably update that in a future video if I find anything out substantial. But for your own research, that might be of note. Let's move on to 3424, 49 minutes after the hour 9. Mueller's in brackets, and that's not a good place to be. Hearing delayed. What are the odds of that? Yeah, what are the odds of that, John? I think he's just making stuff up. Here is this article from Roll Call. Thanks to Lisa Mae Crowley who posted this. Mueller hearing might be delayed and lengthened so more members can question him. Republicans and junior Democrats on Judiciary panel had grumbled at original 2-hour format. Special counsel Robert Mueller's testimony before Congress might be delayed until July 24th, a week later than originally scheduled, to accommodate questioning from more members, multiple media outlets reported Friday. Mueller and House Judiciary Chairman Gerald Nadler had been negotiating the framework of the hearing for weeks and announced yesterday that the special counsel's testimony, initially scheduled for Wednesday, July 17th, would last no more than 2 hours. The hearing set for July 24th has been lengthened to 3 hours. Oh, okay, so they wanted more time. Sounds like they actually wanted a little bit more time to think about it, and that's what I'm guessing. So let's go back to these Q posts here. I want to take you down to 3410. And this post right here was talking about this. Stealth bomber, date of first flight, and that was the 17th of 1989. No. And this is the 30th anniversary, right? And then we were talking about, I had figured this out to be equate to Bill Barr, A, B, C, D, and etc. You can watch my video from the other day if you want to go talk about that. But this very well could have been a call out by Q. Deep State's reacting, and they found that they need a little bit more time. Maybe the 17th, they realized that they were going to get caught with their pants down, and now they have to use it under the guise of wanting more time and wanting more people to be able to question. Who knows? They're probably trying to scramble to come up with the questioning, but don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen. I just happen to have some secret ninja footage of the Deep State war room. I'm sure they'll get it figured out. They'll get it figured out. Post 3425, 7 minutes after the hour of 10. We get this Twitter link from CBS News. Q says, find out the people that went to that island. POTUS. Anons. No. What are we talking about here? This link takes you to CBS. And here's an interview on, looks to be the White House lawn here. Trump, Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. Well, let's check it out.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. And you watched people yesterday saying that I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. That was many, many years ago. It shows you one thing, that I have good taste, okay? Now, other people, they went all over with him. They went to his island. They went all over the place. He was very well known in Palm Beach. His island, whatever his island was, wherever it is, I was never there. Find out the people that went to the island. But Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. I threw him out. In fact, I think the great James Patterson, who's a member of Mar-a-Lago, made a statement yesterday that many years ago I threw him out. I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, there you go, and this shouldn't be surprising to us. I would imagine that if POTUS really were worried about anything coming out here, they never would have made it a big deal in the first place, and Epstein probably never would have even been arrested in the first place. So, there you go. These logs are going to be pretty damning. It looks like these wheels up might be included also. It seems to me to make a whole lot of sense, and once we find out really the whole scope, who was not only on just Epstein's logs, but maybe Epstein's other logs, or these wheels up logs, we may find out really how pervasive this really was. Now, I just want to add this other article in from Fox News. There's a little video here. I'll include this because this text is really, really small. But basically what happened here is another employee who was on the Epstein Island, who had also claimed to have seen Bill Clinton there, was saying that Epstein kept a steel safe in his office and that it contained more than just money. And who knows, this very well could be, like I was talking about, these insurance policies, right? Whether it's tapes or recordings of people who have been on the island in order to keep them silent. We're not really sure, but it looks like they know about it. And if they know about it, their chances are they're probably investigating it, right? And this came from an employee. All these employees had been asked to sign non-disclosure agreements for obvious reasons, right? But it looks like it's coming out, and we're going to find out what was in those safes. And if we find out what was in those safes, we might find out what was on those logs, or maybe it was the logs themselves in those safes. But either way, POTUS says find out the people that went to that island. All right, so let's move on to 3426, 10 minutes after the hour 10. We get another Twitter link right here, and it takes you to Tegan Goddard. Tegan Goddard is the publisher of Political Wire and wrote a nice little piece here entitled How QAnon Makes People Miserable. Wah for Tegan. Q says, try harder. Nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing. And those are your Q posts, and I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to let your favorite deep state knucklehead give us a dramatic reading of how QAnon makes one miserable. Yes, that's right. A dramatic reading from our very own slack-jawed correspondent, Sir Patrick Mack of Maplethorpe. He will lead you out. But before that, I want to say thanks for watching. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate those of you who do that already. Thanks for those of you who share my videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome to you. Please understand that you're going to get unclicked and unnotified and unsubscribed. So please keep checking back. I highly suggest searching IPOT or IPOT 1776 to find my videos if you're having a hard time, and just re-click yourself, resubscribe yourself, re-notify yourself, do whatever you got to do, because Susan Wojcicki's going to sneak in the middle of the night and undo it anyway. So just do me a favor and click yourself back, please. All my alternate links are down below, my Gab, my BitChute, my Real.video, which is now Brighteon.com. It appears to be back up, but I don't have my account back up yet. Still working on that. I'm also over here at IPOT 1776 on Twitter, IPOT 1776, and my channel is on DropSpace too. You can find my videos there. All those links are down below in the video description, as well as my email, as well as my P.O. box if you'd like to send something old school. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon is linked down below. It's all down below in the video description. All right, kids, this is Sir Patrick Mack. I will let Maplethorpe take over. And until next time, stay funky. Pursuit of Truth presents a dramatic reading with your host, Sir Patrick Mack of Maplethorpe.
One of the most disheartening signs of our advancing hell world are the thousands of people who wholeheartedly believe in the deranged conspiracy known as QAnon. It's near impossible to summarize the entire QAnon conspiracy theory, as it's fluid and ever-changing. The nuts and bolts are that a secret government insider, the titular Q, has taken to the internet forum 8chan, of all places to drop clues, known in the community as Q-drops, breadcrumbs, about how President Trump is taking down the deep state. The conspiracy takes some twists and turns into the occult, an ever-present cabal of pedophiles, possible executions, and the idea JFK Jr. may have faked his own death and is cosplaying as an old guy who goes to Trump rallies. While the QAnon conspiracy often feels like an elaborate troll, an online community of real, actual people has built up around it.